Hello, friends, alumni, students, and colleagues. Welcome to this very special Mason Science Series pre-Halloween event. I understand we have nearly 200 of individuals registered to join this discussion, which is decidedly not entitled The Mason Body Farm. I am Fernando Morales Wilhelm, and it is my honor to serve as Dean of the College of Science for just about 4 months now. Um, I've been a scientist for over 30 years, and now I'm dean of this extraordinary College of Science. It is not just my personal mission, but also my responsibility to advocate for science. In these extraordinary times where science is being challenged and scrutinized so heavily, we are facing tremendous problems. I thought it would be appropriate to offer a few comments before we start. These grand challenges that we face as a planet are being confronted, explored, and solved by scientists across the globe, in universities, in industry, in government, and here at our own College of Science, where researchers are working tirelessly and collaboratively to make our world safer, healthier, and sustainable. Now more than ever, our scientists need your support, morally and financially. As alumni and friends of the College of Science, I invite you to join me. Stand proudly for science. And on behalf of our students and our faculty, please know how much we appreciate your ongoing support and engagement with our college. This afternoon's research discussion will focus on a unique field of science, which is forensic science. And I have to say that since I joined Mason, I've been fascinated with our forensic science program, and I'm eager every day to learn more and more about it. So I'm actually very excited about today's event. You know, forensic science actually encompasses many fields and disciplines related to the application of science to the law. This program was established at Mason in 2010 to address the growing national and regional demand for trained forensic scientists and technicians. We have a hands-on program that provides a solid foundation in legal and technical crime scene investigation with scientific skills relevant to forensics, including state-of-the-art forensic DNA, chemistry, and anthropology. It has been especially relevant for individuals involved in the high technology law enforcement workplace. Now, before I introduce our panelists for today, I just want to do a few Zoom housekeeping comments. We're recording this event and the link will be shared and posted on our website after the event. Questions can be submitted using your name or anonymous at any time using the Q&A box that you find in the bottom of your screen. We will discuss questions following the presentations. Um, Attendee microphones, cameras, and chat and raise hand features will be disabled for the event, so we'll only take questions through the Q&A button. So now let me briefly introduce my distinguished colleagues. Prior to joining Mason in 2015, Mary Ellen O'Toole spent her career studying the criminal mind. She's one of the most, or was one of the most senior profilers for the FBI until her retirement in 2009. She has helped capture, interview, and understand some of the world's most infamous people, including Ted Kaczynski, who you may remember as the Unabomber, the Zodiac serial murder case, the Green River serial murder case, the Polyclass child abduction, and David Parker Ray, a serial sexual sadist. Mary Ellen also worked the Elizabeth Smart and Natalie Holloway disappearances, the Columbine shootings, and many other high-profile cases. With a law enforcement career spanning 32 years, Mary Ellen worked as an FBI agent for 28 years, spending more than half of her bureau career in the organization's prestigious Behavioral Analysis Unit, BAU, the very unit that is the focus of the hit crime series Criminal Minds. Mary Ellen is also a trained FBI hostage negotiator and has a unique expertise in the areas of targeted school violence, workplace violence, and threat assessment. She is recognized as the FBI's leading expert in the area of psychopathy. Her work in psychopathy has put her on the forefront of mental health and law enforcement efforts to apply the concepts of this personality disorder to both violent and white-collar offenders and their behaviors and crime scenes. Mary Ellen lectures internationally on the application of the theory of psychopathy to real-life situations. She has lectured at the FBI Academy uh, on psychopathy and interviewing. She has served as an adjunct faculty to the FBI's prestigious Leadership Development Institute at the FBI Academy and has also frequently lectured at the Smithsonian Institution about everything from Sherlock Holmes to personal safety. She is a fellow with the American Academy of Forensic Sciences. Mary Ellen is also the author of the book Dangerous Instincts: How Gut Feelings Betray Us, and editor-in-chief of the journal Violence and Gender, the only international peer-reviewed journal focusing on the role of gender in the understanding, prediction, and prevention of acts of violence. Now let me introduce our second speaker, Dr. Anthony Falsetti. Tony joined the Forensic Science program in 2019, bringing a wealth of academic and operational expertise to Mason. Tony is a board certified forensic anthropologist, which he describes as the application of all the wonderful things we know about human biology to an individual unidentified case, or if you know the identity of the deceased, to help determine what happened to them, like the TV show Bones. His vast field experiences include major cases in Moscow, in Bosnia, and many other places around the world. When he arrived at the University of Florida back in 1996, Tony worked with Bill Maples, who had been part of a team that examined 9 skeletons that belonged to members of the last Russian imperial family, the Romanovs, who were executed by Soviet leadership. 5 of the bodies were identified as Russian Tsar Nicholas Romanov, his wife, and 3 of their 5 children. When Maples passed away, Tony inherited the first part of the Romanov case, and in 2007, he traveled to Russia and used DNA evidence to confirm the identity of 2 skeletal remains as the remaining Romanov children, Alexei and Anastasia. This discovery was chronicled in the 2008 National Geographic documentary, Finding Anastasia. Tony also worked with the International Commission of Missing Persons in Bosnia, where he helped identify individuals from the Bosnian conflict, a 4-year war that left more than 44,000 people dead and unidentified. And I think Tony was going to chime in with um, some comments on the slide, which I encourage you to see.
Right. So welcome and thank you everyone for this opportunity. I just wanted to throw this up here. When I arrived at the University of Tennessee in 1980, the facility, as we called it then, was a small 1-acre plot in the woods. And as a junior taking human osteology, Bill Bass said, I need some help at the facility. Would you come? Sure. And I walked up to the facility and I saw this sign. And I don't know if you can read it, but it has Dr. Bass's name, has the Department of Anthropology's phone number, which is still the phone number there. And it also has his home phone number. Now, I don't promise to have my home phone number on the outside of the facility, but I certainly might. I've been doing this for some period of time now, and I'm very excited about what we're going to talk about here today. Thank you.
Fantastic. So thank you, Mary Ellen and Tony, for joining us this afternoon and for sharing some exciting news on the forensic science program and what we're not going to refer as the Mason Body Farm. And thank you, all of our guests, for your interest and participation. I'm going to turn it over to Mary Ellen and Tony now, and very excited about listening and seeing your presentations today.
Thank you, Fernando. And as the director of the Forensic Science Program, which I can honestly say it is an awesome program here at George Mason. I'm just thrilled that so many people have signed up today to hear about our newest initiative and to hear about really all the great things that this program offers to our students and to our faculty and to the College of Science. So thank you all very much. Just as a prelude, before Tony gets started, I wanted to tell you a little bit about our program because I call it, it's a visionary program and it's growth to excellence. I became the director back in 2015, and at that time there was a very small faculty, but they are awesome. And they're all still here today, and they're filled with ideas and they're filled with suggestions on every day having to make this, how do we make this program better? So let me tell you a little bit about what this amazing faculty has done. Since the program started in 2010, we have increased enrollment in undergraduates by 132%. That is amazing. And our graduate enrollment consistently increases by 6%, but I know once we get the body farm up and we have it operational, we're going to see a major increase in our undergraduate population as well. When students graduate from our program, they have amazing job opportunities for jobs all over the United States. Let me give you a few examples. They go to work for the FBI. I'm a little partial, I will admit. Some go to work for the Florida Department of Laboratory Examiners, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, Department of Forensic Science, Navarre's Fingerprint Examiners, American Systems, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, United States Postal Service, Forensic Laboratory Services, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services. And these are just a few. Change slides, please. Now, let me tell you what makes our program so great. It really is a program with a vision. We're looking out 5 and 10 years because we want our students to leave here and have that ability to look forward. And when they're in that interview with their new boss, their new agency, they're going to be able to say to that person, I've put my hands on that equipment. I have worked in an anthropological research center. I've done that DNA analysis, and that's what we're striving for here. So we have a faculty that has the kind of experience that we share with our students. This is not just a program based on theory. We bring our cases into our classroom and we talk about how forensics were so instrumental in being able to solve very difficult crimes. Right now, we have a fully operational DNA lab, and we're looking now with the assistance of new faculty at the Future of DNA, building capabilities in emerging DNA analysis techniques and examining how these techniques can be used to solve cases previously not solvable using DNA analysis, very much like the Golden State Killer case. We're also looking at moving forensic chemistry into the future, exploring innovative methods for trace, chemical sampling and analysis in forensic and clinical applications, such as human suspect trailing or homicide victim recovery, deploying canines and fieldable instrumentation. We know dogs work. We know that, but we need to study the volatiles. We need to understand how they pick up that scent and what it is that leads them to that human remain or to that missing child. We're using state-of-the-art equipment when we train our students, so they're learning how to use forensic drones and ferals to measure crime scenes. And I'll tell you a little bit more about an initiative that I'm very excited about as well, the new multifunctional crime scene house that we look forward to being built out at the Science and Tech campus in a few years ahead. Next slide, please. Just so you know a little bit about our programs in the forensic science program, we offer both a bachelor and undergraduate degree and a master's of science in forensic science. Students who come in at the master's level will enroll in a concentration either in crime scene investigation, forensic chemistry, forensic biology, forensic biometric identity analysis, or we have a new program that will be launched in the very near future, which is our professional science master forensic science degree. We also now have 3 certificates in forensic science: forensic science concentration certificate, general forensic concentration certificate, crime scene investigation concentration. We keep designing these programs and creating these concentrations so that we can really prepare that student to focus on those courses and that hands-on experience that will get them that job in the forensic DNA lab, that will get them that crime scene investigator's position with a local police department, that will put them in a forensic biology lab so that they can explain to their colleagues what they did in studying scent dogs in homicide scenes. Next slide, please. Let me show you a little bit about our crime scene house that we have now, and we'll hope to move that crime scene house out to the Science and Tech campus in Manassas, where we will actually custom make a house that will enable us to do many of the kinds of initiatives, again, that we're basically dreaming about. This is our crime scene house located very close to the campus. If you drive by it, you wouldn't know what it is, but we use it now to train our students what it's like to really go into a crime scene and process for forensic evidence. This white vehicle that you see is actually a forensic vehicle. We train our students how to process a car. How do you do that? Next slide, please. Here are 2 pictures of our students that are actually processing crime scenes within our current crime scene house. They're learning the state-of-the-art technique of how to remove forensic evidence from a crime scene and then being able to create their reports so that they can go on to testify in court how they identified the evidence at the scene, how they collected the evidence, and be able to explain to a jury the meaningful nature of that forensic science, that evidence in terms of that particular crime scene. Next slide, please. Now here's our vision, ladies and gentlemen. This is our new crime scene house out at the Science and Tech campus. Does it exist yet? No, it doesn't, but we have a vision for what we want in our next crime scene. We've learned a lot with our small one in Fairfax, but let me show you a little bit about what our new crime scene house will look like if we get the money and the backing and the support. And I really think that we will. Next slide, please. What we want to see in our yet to be built new crime scene house is we want to give back to the community. And we've discussed this and thought that a bigger crime scene house would allow us to have the capability to create a museum for high school students and for grade school students to come in and see what a crime scene looks like. What is forensic evidence? What do people called crime scene investigators do? What does a DNA analyst do? So we want to set up a public section of this house to show the community and bring them in and let them be exposed to the kind of wonderful work that forensic scientists do. We also want to continue to collaborate with all of our law enforcement colleagues from the federal to the state level and be able to train together with scent dogs, be able to show them, take them onto the body farm and let them be able to conduct scientific experiments right alongside of our students. So we want to have that collaborative partnership so that we can work together and work together. We know we're going to come up with so many more ideas and so many things that are of value to the science. We want multiple classrooms so that we can turn them into crime scenes so that students can process them, forensic work, forensic rooms for analysis, large conference rooms so we can bring in our students and we can have initially a lecture course with them, and then be able to send them around the house so that they can conduct their crime scene experiments. So that's our vision. That's our vision for science and tech, that we will be out there. Our whole program will actually be out there, and we will be able to offer all of these things to our students, because we know forensic science is a growing science. We know our students have to be the best prepared that they can to take on all the new challenges in forensic science. And we know we need to, and we really want to collaborate with all of our law enforcement and science partners so that we can be the best that we can be and send our students off to a career that has been as remarkable as the careers that I know Tony and I have had for the last 30 plus years, as well as our amazing faculty. And Tony, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking about what is the research and training laboratory and what it's not. It's not a body farm. We can deal with that, and I appreciate Dean Fernando throwing it out there at the very beginning. What is it? It is a laboratory. This was proposed through the college, up through the provost, down to Richmond, as a laboratory. So it is a laboratory, and it will be considered a laboratory within the College of Science as part of the forensic science program. It does represent a college-wide effort that is led by forensic science. And what's really unique is we will join, there's only 7 other facilities worldwide. We would be the 8th in the world to come online. Next slide. So we've mentioned Science and Technology Campus. For those of you not familiar, this is a map of the location of science and tech. You can see it down on the, which I guess will be the right-hand side of your screen, and where the arrow is. And notice its proximity to Washington, D.C., and all of the entities that are involved in that. And it's just far enough away from, a dense population that we can properly secure and have a facility such as this. Next slide. This is our Science and Technology Campus. If you've not been there, or you're not located here locally, this is a beautiful campus. Again, somewhat secluded, not that far from Fairfax. So, next slide. So, why is this campus perfectly appropriate, and it goes with the vision of not only the college, but certainly the forensic science program? So we'll start with the, this is an overall of the campus. We'll start with the Occoquan building down there in the bottom of your slide.
I think the expertise piece is worth touching on if you want to cover that quickly.
And if you'll move across the bottom of your screen, you'll see this is the Department of Forensic Science and the attached medical examiner's office, and going slightly north, past the 2 big data centers that are there. That's the Prince William County Police Department. So you get the sense that we're located with people who are like-minded and will take advantage of such a facility. And off to the far left, up the Prince William Parkway, a number of different scientific laboratories, including the FBI. And we'll come back to this further on in the presentation, but the lab's going to be just beyond the Piedmont Trail there up to the north, so very secluded away from certainly any developments. So next slide, please. So what will it accomplish? Well, it gives us a 5-acre secure facility where we can train our students, as Dr. O'Toole said, both operationally, but using the latest technology. It highlights our commitment to forensic science. It will promote collaborations with other institutions. As you'll see further on, we've already established some. We'll facilitate our community partnerships. There may be some opportunity, certainly with STEM education, but training local, state, and federal investigators. And it's going to become a focal point for not only within the college, but again, other individuals who are interested in all the things we can do there. Next. So the College of Sciences, briefly, if you're not familiar, forensic science is public science, which means any science could be considered a forensic science if it's applicable to the law. And one of the benefits of this facility in particular, being in a college of science, is all of these different programs and all of the graduate students and undergrads from these programs can take advantage of having such a facility or laboratory, as part of their program. The other institutions, fantastic as though they are all within an anthropology department, which is great. That's how I was trained, but it's much broader than that. And so we're going to take advantage of having the entire College of Science to pick the minds of people who can help contribute. Next, please. Well, why is it important? Well, it's the only one in the Mid-Atlantic region. It gives Mason a very unique opportunity to not only promote world-class research, but to really understand what our environment's like here and how can we take our understanding of that environment and apply it to actual cases. How do we solve missing and unidentified persons cases? Fernando mentioned sustainability at the very beginning. One of the sustainable development goals for 2030 includes institutions, and that's institutions of justice fall under that. So it may not be readily apparent, but the research we do solving cases, promotes that SDG. Our position here at Washington, D.C. and all the federal agencies, is certainly going to be a huge benefit to us. And it's going to help those agencies as well. Next slide. So what are some of the significant findings and how does the facility at Mason work into this? Well, the earliest facilities, they help establish the use of flies to determine the time since death. Well, why is that important? Well, it aids in the exclusion as important as the inclusion of suspects in homicides or other unattended deaths. Now, you might think that flies behave the same depending on their environment, but that's not true. So we really need to understand the Mid-Atlantic area so that we can contribute to the greater knowledge of how insects play a role in forensic science. Dr. Wilson, who's in our program, and I have submitted grants and are working with individuals at other agencies to improve our capabilities to retrieve DNA from degraded bone. Identifying unidentified persons is critical to solving crimes because often an unidentified person is a victim of a homicide. And Dr. O'Toole will tell you and other investigators that you almost have to start with the name of the victim and then work your way out. Our facility will help promote that type of research. And obviously provides training for law enforcement in the recovery of human remains. And here at Mason, we're excited to take advantage of our UAV or drone program for testing new technology to locate clandestine graves, again, to solve missing persons cases, and to help find mass graves. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Next slide. Just a few picture slides. This is a member of the FBI evidence response team training in the recovery of human skeletal remains. Why is it important? It's important that you understand the process of preserving a crime scene as you go through it so that you don't lose contextual information. And buried bodies and surface remains are found in in an environment that's always changing. So the proper recovery preserves that evidence to ultimately go to court. Next slide. Well, research. The research potential is fantastic. The gentleman Studying those human remains over there is Dr. William M. Bass from the University of Tennessee. They've got a long history of research, and we intend to contribute to that here at Mason using human donors. In the middle, and in order to do this, we need to understand the environment, which is why it involves the entire College of Science. We need to understand the insects, what insects are present, what are absent, during what parts of the year. How does the plants impact our understanding of not only the decomposition process, but how can it impact, the movement of human remains, because context is everything. And you see the students there, those are our Mason students collecting environmental information prior to the advent of any human remains, because we want to set a baseline and really understand the environment in 3 dimensions so that when we do this very directed research, we can be very confident in our results. Next. So cases, how does this all apply to cases? Well, the 2 photographs on the far end come from Bosnia. They come from a place called Prijedor. When I was deputy director there at the International Commission on Missing Persons, I was in charge of morgues and the archaeology field team. So these are my archaeologists, my colleagues, recovering human remains from a mass grave for identification. Understanding the decomposition process from a facility such as ours will tell us, help us interpret the position of the bodies. What often happened in Bosnia was human remains were removed to hide the graves. And so understanding the normal process is critical. And in the center there, that is me in my Tennessee orange on top of what's left of the Hotel Montana in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. The type of work that we use at facilities gives us information about the condition of human remains as a result of natural disasters, as well as war crimes, as you can see on the side. And we're working there with what's called graves registration for the US Army. We also had some US Air Force personnel there. And these are the kinds of situations and cases that are very important to not only Department of Defense, but Homeland Security. These programs, these entities have a mandate to not only investigate natural disasters, but to recover remains from those. Next slide. So training, not only the training at the beginning with evidence response teams, but one of our big efforts here, because we have a wonderful relationship with lots of chemists, but lots of dog handlers. How do dogs distinguish between a deceased human and anything else that might be in the environment? So that's both the behavioral as well as a very complex chemistry problem. And so we've begun a collaborative effort with the state of Virginia and their emergency management system. And we hope to get more work done, not only in training their dogs, but setting up experiments where we can really understand what the dog's doing. Next. Well, how will it work? It's a laboratory primarily dedicated to studying the process of human decomposition under various conditions. I've mentioned it already. We're going to be looking at the environment. We're going to be looking at soils, the natural animal scavengers, plants, insect species variations, and how that's going to allow us to better hone in on that. And this kind of information is used to determine the time since death and help develop more remote sensing methodologies and instrumentation. So really exciting technological advances. Next. How's it going to benefit George Mason? Again, our students will be on the cutting edge of developing forensic science. They absolutely will be. They're going to be led by individuals not only in our program, but in our entire college in their research. They'll benefit from both hands-on skills as well as the theory and the science of how this comes about. And again, to reiterate what Dr. O'Toole said, our alumni who have these skills are going to be highly sought in industry. Where do human donors come from? I thought I would preempt this question by just answering it directly. They're going to come through the Virginia State Anatomical Program. It's part of the Virginia Department of Health. We've been in constant contact with them. They have already have a mechanism where human donors are distributed to medical schools and other research institutions in the state. And George Mason would fall under that. Full disclosure, the donors will know exactly exactly what we plan to do. So next. How will they arrive? And again, I can't emphasize more, the donors are our most valued asset. We couldn't do any of this without our donors. They're going to arrive directly from Richmond through the anatomical program after being screened for infectious disease, including HIV and COVID-19. That's something that's created somewhat of a backlog this year, but it's important that they do those tests prior to having the remains sent to us. And we will have a special transport vehicle to complete the transfer, all the while treating the donor with dignity and respect. So where is it going to be? So we're going to revisit this. I mentioned before the Piedmont Trail. So just north of that Piedmont Trail is a location that we think will be perfectly appropriate. Next slide. We have had engineering, so we being College of Science, Forensic Science, and Facilities at the university have worked with an engineering company as well as our environmental health and safety. And we have, this is the latest drawing. It just came in on Monday. And this is approximately what the facility will look like. It'll have an outer fence, a secured fence with privacy screening, and then an interior approximately 1 acre where the research will take place. And again, so that we can safely sequester the donors from the activities of law enforcement and our own graduate students, although our own graduate students will also be working on the donors as well. So next. Security, we have vetted this through our colleagues and partners, research partners, the Department of Police and Public Safety. It's a laboratory. It's a laboratory like any other laboratory at Mason. It is going to be key controlled. We will have security lighting, security fencing, video monitoring, not only for research, but for safety. We have thought this through, and we want to not only preserve the dignity of our donors, but the safety of our students and employees. Next. Briefly, some of the current activities, even though we don't have the fencing up, we have students out there who are collecting soil samples, and they're looking at the taxonomy of soils. They're also doing some of our students are actually doing the chemical characterization. So, what does the soils look like under mass spec? We've been working already with Fairfax County Police to create scenarios for our research when our donors first arrive. It's very important to police to best understand what happens to remains when the victims are buried. And again, our collaboration with GMU Police and Prince William County Police, our research on distinguishing between scent and odor, and basically how do body recovery dogs' noses work. So these are some things that we're currently doing, and we're very excited about it. And so we'll be ready when our first donor comes. Next. I mentioned before, again, who are we working with outside of Mason? I mean, it's fantastic that we can work with our Mason colleagues, but we're working with the Virginia State Medical Examiner, Department of Forensic Sciences, the Anthropology Department at the National Museum of Natural History, Smithsonian, U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Division, and the DC Medical Examiner's Office, and many others. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. And I think I brought it in on time. And again, thank you. It was a terrific opportunity to get to speak to you.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Mary Ellen. I'm Audrey Kelleher. I'm Director of Development for the College of Science, and I will be helping to moderate the many questions that we have in the Q&A box. Keep submitting. We will get to as many as we can. As we're queuing up the first question, I just want to offer my personal thanks to Mary Ellen and Tony. And not only are they marvelous scholars, academics, forensic scientists, but they've been extraordinary individuals to work with in this process. Very collaborative, and we have appreciated that very much from the Office of Development. So without hesitation to the first question, and we'll go to Mary Ellen and give Tony a little break here. What is it like, and I'll combine two questions. What is it like to profile serial killers and other high profile cases? And do you think we can find the Zodiac killer now that our DNA analysis is available?
So great questions. What is it like to profile? We actually profile the crime scene and not the unknown offender, but working on a serial murder case like we did in the BAU is really very challenging because there are so many aspects to the scene, and you have so many component parts. You have the victimology, you have things like wound pathology, you have the type of sexual assault, you have so many elements of the crime that you have to fit together like a puzzle piece, because unlike what they portray on television, all serial killers are not alike. The most common type that we worked in the BAU were serial sexual killers, which are men that murdered for sexual reasons. But they used different weapons. They went after different victims. They committed their crimes at different times of the day. They did different things to the victims at different times during the crime. So that is what makes it difficult. So you really do have to dig in and really understand each and every crime scene of each and every offender. And one of the things that makes me so excited about this initiative that Tony is talking about is oftentimes our victims are left outside. And when we recover the victims, they may be skeletonized remains, or they may have minimal forensic evidence left on the body. And so it becomes really important to understand what the environment does to human remains in a case like that. What is really interesting, the cases are fascinating, there's just no question about it. But to me, the most interesting thing, once you know what the serial killer did and how he did it and why he did it, then the most fascinating thing to do is to sit across the table and talk to him about how he did it and why he did it, and have him put it into his own words. And I say this with in a way that we have a certain kind of humor in the BAU. So I say this with all the respect to all the people that we ever worked with. Talking to a serial killer for me is better than getting a pony at Christmas time, because you're really inside the mind of these individuals, and the things that they tell you, and they do tell you, is unbelievable. So the question on the serial killer is an excellent one. And as far as Zodiac, you're talking about, I think, the California Zodiac case. We're pretty sure we know who it is, and he has died, but being pretty sure is not being absolutely sure. And so, yes, I do think that with the new DNA techniques and the type of analysis that is out there, and the type of analysis that our students are going to be learning about here at George Mason, I think there's a pretty good chance we will be able to resolve that case with a degree of certainty, and that's important. The problem with that case is this: it happened when I worked on that case, I worked on it in 77, 78, 79, and then I went back and worked on it in early 1990s. So I worked on it when it was still happening, and then I worked on it in the 90s. And part of the problem with that case is it was investigated by different agencies. I was with San Francisco District Attorney's Office. We had some of the evidence, but other departments had other evidence. And you learn as a forensic scientist that if you don't have all the evidence together in one spot, oftentimes it gets lost. Evidence wasn't packaged correctly. And so in this case, we did run into that problem because of all the jurisdictional issues that we were facing. But I'm optimistic. I think with the state of DNA now, I think we will make the determination exactly who the Zodiac was. Thank you for those questions.
Sorry. Thank you, Mary Ellen. Really fascinating. And I think your response probably opens up a potential topic for a whole new webinar. So intriguing. So we have a couple of questions from, I will say, one of our favorite alumni, Mark Monson. And I'll combine them because they're kind of related, and we'll go to Tony first. Will newly dead bodies be placed outside at the facility? And if so, how will the odor of decomposition be handled? And part two, won't the fencing restrict animal access? And if so, doesn't that restrict some of the science?
Yeah, it does. Those are excellent questions. How will the decomposition odor be handled? Odor from decomposition is a natural occurring event. Throughout the decomposition process, there is a period of time, it's actually technically during putrefaction, when the release of our bacteria into the environment creates that unpleasant odor. But we want to understand that. So, I mean, we don't intend to do anything that might diminish that or retard that, other than if the scenario calls for a burial. The good thing about this is that that odor only occurs for a period of time during the decomposition process, and then it goes away, to some degree. So I hope that helps with that part. The second part was, I've lost it. The fencing, yes. Absolutely, the fencing will prohibit, we hope, very large animals from getting through. The large mammals, birds, insects, a very ambitious mammal could get in there. This is something that's been acknowledged at some of the other facilities, where at some point you have to kind of take control of your laboratory, environment, because it is a laboratory. And so that's one of the controls that we would have to impose. And that's just the nature. But we'll certainly document it. We'll have the video out there, so we'll see who comes, who manages to make it through our barriers. But yeah, we understand that to some degree it will be a factor that we would have to control statistically.
Thank you. Here's a future programmatic question that I've heard discussed. So I think Mary Ellen and Tony, if you want to chime in, are there plans on incorporating some sort of law enforcement training of processing clandestine graves or outdoor crime scenes using the donated remains? Or will it be completely focused on university studies? I ask because the San Marcos location, we utilize donated remains to San Marcos in their facilities, do an annual training event for our agents with an Army CID on the same. Could be beneficial for this area as well.
I can answer that. Absolutely. I apologize for not making that more clear. Yes, we are working with not only Army CID, our contacts there, but with Prince William and Fairfax, and contacting folks at the ERT, at the FBI, to develop that training. Right now, the San Marcos facility, which is Texas State, fantastic facility there, has such training. We intend to do that as well so that we can train our folks regionally and provide that as a not only a resource for law enforcement, but quite honestly, it'll be a way for us to generate the necessary funds to maintain the facility. It's a model the University of Tennessee started, and it's certainly a model we intend to adopt here at Mason.
And I would just add that from the very beginning, we have discussed one of the priorities for us with this initiatives, without question, would be that we would be a very unique facility, and we would absolutely collaborate with our law enforcement, our military partners to provide training, to engage in training, to allow training to occur at the facility. So that's definitely one of our highest priorities. And that's been our thinking for really many years since we first started to discuss having this initiative. So absolutely, that's critical for us.
Thank you. And we will, when we send out the link to the recording of this session, we will also have good contact information. So if we have participants who want to, explore ways to partner with the program, we enthusiastically invite you to reach out to us. The next one is about, I'm shifting to some student questions here, and we have a lot coming in. So there was one that I kind of wanted to start with to frame it. So we'll go with some of the questions about, can any student visit the crime scene house in Manassas when it's built? How is the crime scene house working now in a virtual learning setting? How has COVID affected the use of the crime scene house? And then the encompassing one, how can undergraduates become involved with the laboratory at the SciTech campus, which is a separate entity from the crime scene house? Do we have to create a research proposal to be involved, or can we assist in some way if we do not have a proposal? So these, I gather, are from prospective students or current undergraduate students about how to be involved in the crime scene house and the outdoor laboratory, AKA body farm.
Sure. Okay. So the first part of the question was, can people visit the crime scene house? The smaller one that I showed you on a slide. We have given tours to people up until the point we had COVID. And then at that time, because it's such a small house, we really have not been able to use it the way we have used it for the last 2 years. But that will change as soon as we're able to turn this, the COVID situation wanes somewhat. But what we've been doing in place of that, our instructors have been doing hands-on labs with the students, virtual labs, and they've been working out well. But we're real excited to get back into the crime scene house because that's a real life experience. The crime scene house out at Science and Tech, which we've not built yet, which obviously there's a lot of planning and strategizing that will have to go in that. What I had described initially was we wanted this to be a very open facility. So part of it would have something like a museum and a theater where people from the public could come in and take a look at what is a crime scene house, what are forensics, how do you use it, what are the types of sciences that make up your forensic program. So we don't want this to be closed off. We want this to embrace other students, including grade school students, middle students, high school students who are interested in a career in science, and then certainly to bring in our own students. And we will be offering undergraduate courses in crime scene investigation. And with these concentrations and with the focus that we're putting on areas of study like chemistry and DNA analysis and forensic anthropology, we want to offer hands-on to our undergraduate students. Our graduate students get that, but we're working very, very deliberately to make opportunities, create opportunities for our undergraduate students be able to get involved in these hands-on experiences, whether it's through a research project or if it's, for example, helping Dr. Falsetti in his ongoing research right now involving the soil samples out there at Science and Tech. So we want to open it up to undergraduates. We intend to, because this is something way too important, way too valuable to restrict it. So I hope that answers your question. Our undergraduate students, we want them to have that hands-on experience too.
Do you have anything to add to that, Tony?
Oh,
You don't have to.
yeah, yeah. Just very, very briefly. My first exposure to the research facility was 1983. Was a junior in ours, and so I have no problem. There's no big requirement other than that this has to be something that, you know, you're willing to do, because it's not for everyone. I will caution you there. But sure, I mean, if you express an honest interest, I'm happy to have you come out, as long as you're willing to work. I think it'll be great.
Great, thank you. I think we've answered this question to some degree, but I'll just reiterate it because I know that you are actively seeking partners. So for your law enforcement partners, do you have an idea, or can you speak to if there are any training courses that are being developed for clandestine grave recovery, similar to the NFA in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where they have Clandestine Grave Week?
Yeah, yes, the answer is yes. We're working in particular closely with Fairfax, with Major Christian Quinn, who's head of their forensic unit. He's been very excited. He has a master's from GW, unfortunately, but is a master's in forensic science. So he speaks our language, and he's helping us creating a curriculum that would best benefit his personnel, and we'll roll those out. So yeah, we are working hand in hand with him in particular right now.
But I would also say that with our partners, because we have such a wide assortment of partners, we'll definitely be picking their brains too, to make sure that the training courses that are offered, or the training courses that a particular agency wants to offer using our facilities, that it's designed in a way that they find very useful for their folks. And if it involves clandestine graves, that's great. We're going to work collaboratively with everybody, so it won't be us just designing things and then telling people, hey, we've got this course. It will be working together with people to say, what do we want to do together? And then, hey, what do you want to do? And you want to put this course on these days over this weekend? That's great. So that's how we really envision it.
Wonderful, thank you. And then I'll shift back to another student-focused question. Would you suggest getting the advanced master's at Mason? I'm looking to go into forensic pathology to become a medical examiner, and I was wondering if having that extra notch on my belt would make a difference. So maybe talk about, who might be candidates for the master's programs and or certificates.
So what I would say, if you are interested in becoming a medical examiner, that will require that you go to medical school and become a forensic pathologist. And that's a great career path. We do have people that our graduate students do come in to our program. And I think we have a really vibrant program for people that want to be death investigators. And when they graduate from the program at Mason, they go work for agencies like the District of Columbia Medical Examiner's Office or the Northern Virginia Medical Examiner's Office. So they get the jobs. if you wanted to pursue an extra degree before you went into medical school, then you'd want to probably focus on working in a medical examiner's office as part of your internship. And that's something that we could certainly work with you on. And right now we have several, it's a very sought after internship, I'll be honest with you, but we have 2 students out there just about every semester working at both of those medical examiners' offices, and they love it and they learn a lot and they come away and they're very skilled and they're very competitive in getting the jobs. I just don't know if you're facing all those years of medical school, if you don't want to just jump on getting into medical school right away. But if you decided that you wanted to add another degree to your belt, we'd love to talk to you about it.
Great, thank you. So we'll pull back and lighten it up a little bit for the moment. Is it true that unlike the TV shows, profilers work from the evidence and photos instead of actually going to the crime scene itself? I've heard this was the case, but I keep thinking surely there's a lot more that can be learned from being in person on site.
Okay, and so profilers do go to the crime scene, but when we get to the crime scene, the evidence has usually been collected. So we don't go to a scene when the first responders are there and the crime scene investigators are there. It's typically days, weeks, months, or even years later. And we go very prepared, and we go having read all of the forensic reports. We go there after having studied all the photographs and looking at all the interviews, the neighborhood investigation. We look at the whole case file before we go to the scene. The value of going to a scene, even though it's after the crime has occurred, is you really do get a much better sense on the neighborhood. You get a sense on how the offender was able to get up so close to the victim. Was this behavior that you see in the crime itself, was it really high risk for the offender? And if he engaged in such high risk behavior, why did he do that? How much pre-incident knowledge did the offender have of the victim, which means that did he just target her or him at that moment, or had he been in the neighborhood for a while? So when you go to the scene itself and you see physically how it's laid out, it becomes really helpful to understand how the crime occurred and why that victim was selected. So again, we don't go to active crime scenes because things are still being collected and studied and analyzed. We go after the fact. And when we do go, we do take with us the case file that we've studied in depth. So we have a very thorough knowledge of the case.
Tony, do you have anything to add to that one?
Nope, it's a little outside my expertise.
All right, I will add, we're a few minutes over our scheduled time. Mary Ellen and Tony are available to continue for a few minutes, and I know they have some of their students joining as well. For those who are able to stay with us, we'll keep addressing some of the questions that have come in. I will also say that any questions that we don't get to, we will create a written response to those and share them as we share the recording and the information after the event. So if we don't get to your questions, we apologize. There are so many excellent questions. And we'll go on for a couple more minutes for those of you who can hang with us. I see we still have about almost 100 people with us, so this is wonderful.
Can I jump in on one?
Please.
Sure. Someone asked, what is the official name and basically what's the timeline?
Yes.
The official name is the Forensic Science Research and Training Laboratory, because it is a laboratory within the Forensic Science program and the College of Science. So laboratory is part of the name. I need to learn to call it the laboratory. I, by default, refer to it as the facility. So that's on me. Timeline, time frame. I see Carrie McVickers there, so she might want to jump in and correct me. But the drawing that you saw from the engineering company is going to be used to bid for the fencing That's a process that is actually handled by facilities and not by the forensic science program. I know they're moving forward, as expeditiously as possible. And it is our hope that this will occur, over the break. And so by spring semester, we hope to be in a position that if donors are available, that we can introduce them to the laboratory. Probably the end of spring semester, realistically. There have been some COVID-19 questions, how COVID-19 has impacted the anatomical gifting program is that additional testing now has to occur, and for COVID-19 specifically. And so that's kind of backlogged all the donor program in the state of Virginia. So that research institutions are just one step lower than the actual medical schools. So end of spring semester, summer at the absolute latest. So I just thought I'd jump in when I saw that question.
No, thank you. I encourage you both to do so, because as you can see, we're going back and forth between a lot of questions here. So timeline, end of spring.
Oh, here's a hot button question. Do we anticipate aggressive negative public reaction, bad press, community issues, or ethical, moral, negative responses from others? I'd like to just have a blanket no, but I know that's not how humans are. We have reached out, just so everyone knows, using our contacts at SciTech, Ron Carmichael, Colby Grant, who are in leadership out at SciTech.
Molly.
Pardon?
Molly Groves?
Yes, absolutely. We've reached out to the community. We've reached out to Supervisor Janine Lawson, and are working with her, and informing the planning program for Prince William County. So I'd like to say no, but they've certainly been informed. Other facilities such as this, there are always bubbles up a few people with concerns. But we're prepared to handle those by explaining, why we're doing this, what the importance is, and forensic science, like I said, is a public science. So why we're doing this to benefit, our local community and the community at large.
Okay. Another future question: is there a doctoral program that will be offered by GMU that is focused on forensic science?
Well, I'm glad to get that question, because I said in the very beginning that we're a visionary program, and one of our 5-year visions is to create a PhD program. So that is in the planning stage. We don't have it yet, but we have discussed it and we are planning it.
Wonderful. I think we touched on this one, but as the university plans to build a new instructional facility at SciTech, what other GMU departments can you partner with, as there will be a cadaver lab housed in the new building?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So there's 2 buildings, future projects that will be going on. The one that is more immediate is what's called the Bull Run Addition, and I've been involved, and Dr. O'Toole as well, and other faculty in our program have been involved in the working group as far as the development. And there will be a cadaver lab in there, and a facility for us to process our donors after they've spent time at the facility. One of our goals is to create a donated skeletal collection of known individuals to better our understanding of skeletal change, and secular trends in human populations. But as far as interacting with other programs, certainly the biomechanics program that'll be out there housed in the Bull Run Edition. I know they're interested, and obviously the anatomy program will all benefit, and we will benefit from new partners And also, and from what I understand, engineering, some aspect of engineering will also be in the Bull Run edition. And there's no telling what we can do with virtual reality and remote sensing, but we're excited to explore all of those things.
Yeah, so here's a question that is near and dear to my heart as Director of Development for the College of Science. It's phrased, aside from funding, I would tweak that to say, including what type of funding? What is the biggest challenge facing the forensics program, and how can people on this call today best support you all moving forward?
Well, Audrey, do you, with your area of expertise, do you want to kick off that question?
So I would say when you provide philanthropic support for the forensic science program, it is an invaluable resource because it's, quote, unrestricted. And by that, we mean that it's not allocated to a very, very specific scientific budget line, if you will. But they can use philanthropic funds to fuel and accelerate the priorities for the program without that they otherwise would not have available. So, and certainly with the crime scene house, that's absolutely critical. The philanthropic funds will become critical in that. We have a graduate fellowship fund for the forensic science program to provide support for master's students coming in. Your donations to that will be greatly appreciated and very, very well used. So that's a general outline and also a very specific cause. So beyond that, I would say we're actively seeking the partnerships that have been discussed that involve training, but also creative opportunities to help support these offerings, these educational offerings to the community, if you will. So Tony and Mary Ellen, would you like to pick up on those?
So I would say, having been an FBI agent for so many years, one of the things that the FBI, I think, does really particularly well is that we provide training really throughout the world to law enforcement partners. And the training covers a wide variety of areas. And we provide, in some cases, the only opportunity some departments will have to receive that particular training, whether they get credit for it or they don't. And so with the work that we're doing, whether it's with the crime scene house or with Tony's initiative or with the courses that we want to offer relative to the future of DNA or the future of forensic chemistry, we'd like to provide that to law enforcement throughout the country, because we have four retired FBI agents on our faculty, and Tony worked with the FBI for many years. We know how important that is. And I think through that and the show of partnership that we can show, I think that really gives the public a very good idea of how sincere we are in wanting to make this a community effort to give back to the community, to bring in, for example, students who want to go into STEM, go into a science when they go to college. So we want to have the reputation of ourselves being very philanthropic and giving back to the community. And I think that will inspire people who want to help us to be able to do some of these things. I think it will be it'll be something that will help them to make the decision to maybe work with us and help us to do these things. Because I will tell you that in the area of, like, for example, forensic DNA, that imaginary house that you looked at, I don't know ultimately what our house will look like, but we do want it to be state of the art so we can do all the things I told you about. All of that costs an incredible amount of money. And we expect that we have to figure out ways to be able to support that and not just ask the College of Science or the university to give us that money. That's not even reasonable. But I think through these efforts on our part to to work together and to create this kind of this center of forensic science activity. I think that will send a message to people of how important this is, not just for us, but for them too in the community and in the broader law enforcement community.
Yeah, I would only add that, so in addition to funding, how can the people in the call support us? Just tell everybody we're cool. We got a great, no, seriously, we've got a great program. I mean, that's the kind of environment we want to create. So in case there are some negative things out there, to say, no, this is what they're doing. This is why, help explain. If you could, if anything, if we have helped you better understand what we're doing, then you can tell other people and explain to them why it's really important that, they have a crime scene house, or that human donors are going to be used to study, decomposition, which, if you say that, it's kind of yucky, but it's really not. It's really important. So I would say that, and that, hey, they're going to offer training, they're going to do all these things, but yeah, really, just tell them we're cool.
And I would just add that for the folks attending the call today, if there are, quote, creative partnership opportunities that would support your employees, students that you're interested in supporting in going through this program, let's talk, because there might be avenues that we haven't discussed specifically. But I mean, again, going back to Mary Ellen's point about creating kind of custom graduate programs, custom graduate certificates, if you will. Those are ways of supporting the program, getting students through the program. And we have many alumni participating on the call. So we invite you to appreciate the ways in which the College of Science in Mason is growing. Again, this spans all departments within the College of Science. So your support of this program makes a big difference. And we appreciate it very much. Okay, do we have? I think we've either touched on aspects of the questions in the queue that I'm seeing. Tony and Mary Ellen, do you see anything else that jumps out at you that we want to address explicitly now? Or should we, again, we will have written responses to the questions that we will share?
This may be a good time to maybe start to wind down, only because I know that people have a lot of demands on their time, and we're so grateful that you've spent this afternoon with us. And I like your idea, Audrey, that we can look at the questions once we finish and then follow up with answers to those questions as well.
Wonderful. So yes, special thanks to Mary Ellen, Dr. Mary Ellen O'Toole, Dr. Anthony Falsetti. Again, you've been marvelous, marvelous partners in creating this webinar and putting everything together. We thank you on behalf of the college and on behalf of the development team. Thank you to all of our participants. We have 67 who are still with us. Oh. So I know, it's incredible. So thank you all. And as you have follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We welcome your inquiries and suggestions for future events. I think you all saw that our next Mason Science series will be Protecting the Potomac on November 19th. So you'll be getting an email on that. We encourage you to sign up and join us. And thank you for your time and your interest.
Thank you, everyone. You're wonderful. Hope to see you again very soon. Be safe.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to everyone.
Bye.